Caitlin, you are behind Cred, which is an amazing company that's given us so many guests throughout the year. So now it's time to find out more about what Cred does, how you guys work, and how you have become this incredible PR company. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, and it's great to have the partnership. We love working with you, and it's nice to be here to be able to share some hopefully insights and advice myself.
Yeah, let's do it. So, Caitlin, how did you get interested in PR? I'd love to just start there. Like, what drew you to this world?
Fortunately, I feel like I got sort of lucky in just jumping right into it. So I sort of say I have three different chapters of my career, and the third one being Cred. So the first one I started working for a tech startup, doing all things marketing. So really getting to dip my toe in a lot of different assets of marketing, and getting to understand what I really value, and also just kind of learn a lot and soak it all in. A part of that was, PR messaging and communications, and the other part was event management. So hosting events and understanding really that hosting a thought leadership event can be very beneficial for businesses. So that's chapter one. Chapter two is working for a creative agency doing brand strategy and planning. So, kind of two elements there that I say I like to learn from that drew me to Cred is really the agency world and understanding sort of the fast pace and working with a lot of different clients and the benefits that that can have working for an agency. And then second is just brand strategy and understanding how a really powerful and consistent voice, what that can do for your business and how it can fuel your flywheel. So I always say I like to put those two together, and that sort of marries my background of how Cred was formed and how it was today. So we really believe that thought leadership can build and drive businesses, and that strong brands through consistent speaking and event hosting have the ability to really fuel your business and to make it a very successful one. So we feel like we operate sort of in that PR and marketing world, and that we have a small and niche, but very powerful offering if folks do it well.
So, how did Cred get started? Like, what was the initial foundation of Cred when it got going?
The initial foundation, it's funny to look back. It's evolved in a good way, but also it's very consistent to what we are today, which is just funny. Sometimes we go back and look at, our original sales pitch or marketing pitch, and it's like, oh, we should use that because it's still relevant and it still works. So, um, we how we got started was really marrying my two backgrounds and figuring out, like, I sort of saw a need and an opportunity that a lot of people don't focus on this, and a lot of PR firms offer it, but it's something that they don't necessarily prioritize in their list of offerings. So I thought, if we only do this, we can do this one thing and do it really, really well. And then we can also leverage other PR firms to partner with them. And that can help sort of build momentum for the business that we're building. So we got started as a personal PR agent, and which is a lot of what we do today. We represent one speaker, and it is often the face of the brand or the CEO. But we were really about your personal brand and building your personal brand. And while we still represent the speaker today, what we realized is that a personal brand, especially for a CEO, is often the company's brand as well, or an element of it. So we found that a lot of times people would kind of want to tie those two together. So instead of representing an individual, we are representing the individual, but on behalf of the business. So that way we can tie back into the business's needs and the business's messaging and their overarching PR or marketing messaging, and figuring out how then we message and create a brand for the speaker. So yeah, a little bit of evolution of how we started, but very similar to where we're building individual thought leaders, we're building them on behalf of the business, and we're using speaking and events as an outlet to build that thought leadership.
So, how did you get your first client for this?
A lot of referrals and a lot of leveraging our network. So when I first started Cred, essentially what I would do is I'd reach out to event contacts that I had, and I had some friends that I was representing, like CEOs and businesses, and my brother being one of them, saying, hey, I'll represent and I'll try and land you some speaking gigs just in the off chance of I'm building networking and I want to see if this works. So I would go to event organizer contacts that I'd worked with in the past and say, hey, ad tech, what are you looking for in your speaker roster this year? I'd love to help you out. And I'd say, I have these, three speakers that I'd love to put forward, and let me know your feedback. And if they'd say, oh, yep, great, we'll book one of them. Awesome. I'd say, hey, is there anyone else that you guys are looking for or talking about? Are there particular roles or companies or industries that you're looking to represent on your agenda? And, this was, again, 20 years ago now, like in the days of ad tech, they're all looking for big brands and Fortune 100 companies. So they'd say, yeah, we'd love someone from Red Bull or Procter and Gamble. And I'd be like, great. I'd go, cold search on LinkedIn and find whoever was in marketing at Red Bull and see if they wanted to speak at AdTech. So they weren't a client at the time, but my hope and goal is that if the event organizer, if we can make their lives easier, which is still our, a huge goal for us today, then they're going to want to work with us more. They'll give us, potentially early access to speaking deadlines or just more intel into what they're looking for in agendas. So our goal has always been to make their lives easier. And so that's kind of how we started. And that's how we got some of our first early clients, started working with them for free, but then kind of saying, if this works out, we hope and expect that you will sign up for a 12-month contract. And then from there, like our business has really been fueled a lot by referrals and what we call boomerangs. So when clients leave one company and then they take us with them to the next company, or, if they pause and they come back. So our goal and our strategy for a lot of these retention strategies is just how do we keep clients sticky and how do we create exceptional service that makes clients want to come back.
So are there really like so many business events that like are happening all the time that you can just be getting people into? Like I know there's obviously like I think there's 5 or 6 like really big ones or something like that, like 10 big ones that happen every year. Are there so many that there's just tons of this happening?
Tons of this happening and new ones popping up every day. And that's the great thing about what we do is because we are so niche in terms of, placing speakers at events and hosting events, that allows us to go really broad with the industries that we represent. So if you take a client, say we have a client in venture capital, right? There are some VC and PE focused events, but they also invest and have a lot of different target industries that they want to be a part of or that they want to be thought leaders in. So we have a whole nother now list of industries or another search that we can do in other areas of focus for them. And so I sort of feel like there's infinite number of opportunities and events that we're constantly researching and adding. And the great thing about the events world, as we've seen in the last 5-6 years, it has changed a lot, but it is definitely back and happening. And there are new and exciting events or breakouts from old events that are happening all the time. So it
Yeah.
keeps us on our toes and it keeps us, just having more opportunities to resource and to research. And one thing we find too, like I think there's a big four in every single industry, those top events that everyone talks about and knows about, but one thing that our team is really good at and that we really try and educate clients on is that those are 4 big events, but those might not be where your target audience is. Or depending on the, your messaging platform of what you're trying to build, there might be other events that you've never heard of, but that are key to, have the exact people you want to be in front of in the audience. So we do really try and, when we take people through our onboarding process and just when we're doing kickoff calls with clients, try and educate them of there's that branding perspective of yes, these are the top tier, top one events, but there's other events that we might put forward that we think are also going to help move the needle for you, depending on what your goals are.
How much of this is turned to the online component and like booking people on podcasts and getting them media interviews? Is that like just as important of a piece to Cred as the conferences piece? Like, are people coming to Cred now even more for that than they are for conferences, or is it just a mix?
It's a mix, but we're still really dominant on IRL events. And I think one thing that's been great about 2025 and particularly the back half of 2025 and looking at 2026 is that live events are back and better than ever. I mean, people are kind of understanding the value of IRL connection and how it can be really efficient and effective for your business. And also just understanding like the power of a speaking opportunity, I think too, and how much you can get done on site. That said, I think the last few years have really shown us too that you don't have to spend a half day flying to an event for a 45-minute talk. Like you can sit like here and do 3 podcasts in a day if you really wanted to. And the impact of that has been really great, especially for some of these busy executives. So to me, it's a complementary balance. And we always ask people, we have podcasts in our database that's included in our offering, but we sort of ask people for their preference. Like, do you want to lean all into IRL events or do you want to sort of supplement with some podcasts and virtual recordings? Or we sell some virtual recording, only packages if people want to do that, because sometimes that's just what works best for their time and their schedule and the messages they're trying to get out. But I would say, like, I'm very excited about 2026 and that there is a huge um, excitement for being back and kind of the in-person connection that you just can't get from behind a screen.
Mm. So how much of this is like performance PR versus like awareness PR? Like, or is it really all awareness mostly? Like, or is this like, hey, this is gonna convert to sales for you?
PR is a hard thing to always put a number behind, right? And so we
Yeah.
recognize that. We have learned over the years that there are a lot of different ways you can message like a speaking opportunity. So leads is one of them, website traffic is another one, but also just partnerships or, looking at the people that speak before and after you and can you make some connections with them? So it's definitely a wishy-washy thing, but it is some, we've had some tactics and some clients that have direct attribution back to a speaking opportunity, which is great. Like deals, either customer deals or acquisition deals that they can say, hey, we met at this speaking opportunity, which is really cool for us. So we do sort of have now some good data points and some measuring tactics that people have used in the past. But it also depends too. Like, yes, there is a branding component and just an awareness thing of, oh, I've heard about you, but I don't know where, that you can't always measure back. So we always try and weigh the two and to remind folks that there is this fluffy part of PR that, if you're in PR, you're in marketing, you do understand sort of the value of that.
Mhm. Separate from like the events world, like just taking advantage of social media today, like is that a piece that you kind of focus on at all, or is like and just how do you see the relevance of like traditional PR with the way social media is and the eyeballs over there?
I think that they all go together, right? We don't always focus on social media, but one thing that we talk about a lot is speaking is one channel for you to put out your thought leadership and your strategy, and social is another channel that can be really powerful, right? So it's important that you are showing up or that you're keeping both in mind to get that sort of 360 picture of you as an executive in your platform. So we always recommend it's something that we can offer for speakers of, hey, we'll handle your speaking opportunities and we can also handle of, your personal account and the kind of content you're putting out and to make sure that they tie in together. So I think it's a super powerful piece. And I think, in the last 12 to 18 months, there's been changes in social media, right? And so companies are sort of evolving and figuring out which platforms are most effective for them. So it's not necessarily about doing all of them, but finding out where your target audience is, what's most important, and then what's realistic also for the frequency of the messaging. So you don't necessarily have to tweet or post every day, but whatever you commit to, you do need to be consistent of it. So if it is daily, weekly, monthly, we always advise like, how does that fit in? How are we keeping consistent messaging for what works best for you so you can keep up with it?
So the evolution of cred, like in terms of clients and handling all of clients, like you have a whole infrastructure built out. How did you figure out the way to build this infrastructure and just the scale of it? Like, how did it scale? Was it 1 to 5 to 10, or was it like 1 to 50 to 100? Like, what kind of pace was the scale at?
Well, we are people based, so we can only scale as fast as our people can scale. So it would say it's more 1 to 5 to 10. And, once we sort of figured out, basically when we were starting with our first 5 clients, it was really important for us to figure out and say, okay, will this work with 20 clients? So one thing we did really early on was, our research started with a spreadsheet. And very, very quickly we realized that a spreadsheet was not going to be enough for us. And it wasn't functionally going to work if we were going to try and cross collaborate across clients and industries. And it just wasn't that efficient, right? So pretty early on, we discovered Airtable, which has been a change for our business. And now it has evolved so much. But back then, 10 years ago, to have the ability for different tabs to sort of talk to each other and not have to be an engineer that's building that, it was huge for what we did. And then what we were able to do too is set up back then of all our reporting and our financial forecasting. And if that ties into all of our client database, like how can we then automate that to show our numbers and our capacity planning and all of that? So Airtable has been instrumental for our business and the growth, which has been huge for us. Um, and so that is a big thing that allowed us to scale. But I would say, yes, we are a bootstrapped business. So once I signed on in 5 clients, I thought, okay, now I can't do client management and new business and marketing by myself. And now also we have revenue to hire somebody. So we hired someone as soon as we got more clients, and we capped out at sort of our capacity for a person. That sort of allowed us to hire more people. And then you get to a comfortable spot where you can now hire 2 people, right? And so we fortunately we don't have to be, so we have 1 client now, we have 1 extra hire we can make. But that's definitely how it started in the beginning. And as a first time entrepreneur, like, I'm just not as risky of a person as some other leaders probably are. And so that was a piece that allowed me to feel comfortable that we are investing in the business, but we are also being responsible.
So I'd love to just hear a bit more about like this niche of like going after technology leaders and why how you saw that white space. Like you mentioned a little bit on it earlier, but how did you identify the right leaders to even become partners with you, and why has this been the space that has worked out well?
That's a great thing about being niche. Like I said, we could really work across any different industry. So there isn't one very small target audience for us. The hard part, with being niche, right? There's the whole argument, especially with agencies, is do you go niche and specialize, or do you do broad and have them be able to service all of your needs? And so, I think it evolves with sort of what's the hot trend is niche versus generalist in the agency world over the years. So we've definitely seen that. But a lot of times what we see is that someone will start with a traditional PR firm or a generalist agency, and they don't have the breadth and the depth of the research and experience with all of the events that we do. And so that is a big benefit of taking us on. And we also understand that we are a very small piece of the entire marketing pie, right? So when we do our section of the pie really, really well, that influences the rest of it, which is beneficial to everybody. But we only control what we can control. And so just recognizing that some people might not always prioritize speaking, and it might not be a target for them right now. But the people that understand what speaking can do for a business, or what hosting a top tier event can do, kind of are the ones that we want to talk to. So those are the people we go after, recognizing, our goal is for as many leaders as possible to understand what we do, but then to come to us when they're ready. And the other thing too is some of these big tech people, they are advising and leaning into the strategies of their PR and their comms team. So if their, comms team is coming to them saying, hey, we need to build out a consistent profile for you, and you need to hit this speaking circuit, and we need people to understand the key messaging points that you're going to get across and what's really important for the business. A lot of the times the CEO or the leaders are very receptive to that. But most of the time, the clients that come to us are ones that are excited to get up on stage, and, they want to be out there speaking to the masses and sharing their story. And we love working with those people.
Yeah, and the AI companies, like it seems like you've got a bunch of different AI companies now. Is that a different kind of PR for some of them, or are there other angles you're thinking about when it comes to AI? Like, what's that like?
Other angles for ourselves too of how we can leverage AI for sure, especially in a
Yeah.
people-based business. So every client, I think AI in particular, with everybody, people are trying to understand how to market it and how to message it and what's the right ways to approach it, right? So I feel like regardless of your offering, everyone's sort of trying to figure out what is this new working phase of AI, and how is that changing the sort of the way that we think about things. But we are trying to figure out with every client that we do, it's what's the best messaging for you, what's happening in the market, and how are we going to make sure that however we're putting, however we're building a thought leadership angle for you, like what does that look like now? So it is kind of a personal process to everybody. With AI, I think it's a lot about education and telling people, for these AI leaders, like trying to help people understand like what AI can actually do for us and how it is fueling us forward more than we're even ready for. I think is something is kind of an approach we're taking with some of these new AI companies is, education and awareness for what it can do. And also just understanding that we're just scratching the surface and getting started, and, trying to tease that and push people forward in some of those areas for these new concepts.
So, what are your biggest goals now, Caitlin? Like, you've grown Cred to a certain size, got a great amount of clients, well-known brands, good team. What's next for you? What do you want more?
I'd love to continue building out a brand name for ourselves. So, we're wrapping up the year where we've done a lot of 2026 discussions with the team and at the management level already. And part of our intention for 2026 is to expand. to expand the team, to expand the partnerships, to expand the quality and the quantity of clients that we're working with. And it's also to expand our brand. So, we have for being a small and mighty agency of, 20 people, we do have a pretty reputable brand and have been fortunate enough to touch a lot of the top, 100 Fortune 100 companies, but also some of the fastest growing startups and some of the most exciting startups that we're coming across. And so we love that and we want to continue that momentum. So, I hope my goal for next year is to be able to continue to expand our brand and our awareness, both to potential tech leaders, but also to other marketing agencies, and to really, have people understand what the value that events and speaking can bring, and also some of these other services that we're now offering. So, beyond speaking, sort of event hosting, we're doing a lot more just strategic planning. So what events should you be attending, sponsoring, and speaking? Giving a budget for your 2026 events, where do we recommend is going to be the best ROI in terms of hosting or sponsoring? Or again, just attending. Like we talked about a little bit before, like social media and where that plays into building thought leaders profiles. So I'd love it to continue building some of those other areas that we've launched over the last 2 to 3 years, and seeing where that takes us. So, like I said, we're kind of in a position right now where we're feeling really positive about 2026, and it seems like events are hot and heavy coming back, and we're excited and want to just build and take advantage of that momentum.
Well, Caitlin, that was all the questions that I had. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think it's exciting what you guys have built. It's a really good niche too, and there's been a lot of really interesting tech companies that you guys have represented that who knows what they would have done in the comms PR side of things, without the help you guys have given them. So I think there's a lot more
Yeah.
companies that could benefit from what you have created, and I'm excited to see the Cred brand grow. It's awesome. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Ben. We love you and I love the partnership. So appreciate the time and thanks for the opportunity.